Welcome back, everyone, to SQE1. Today, we are trying to discuss one of the cheerful topic that brightens every solicitor's day: money laundering. If you ever wondered why compliance officers always look slightly traumatized, this chapter will explain everything. Money laundering is essentially the art of making or taking money that should not exist and persuading the world that it does. The law, of course, takes a dim view of it, and solicitors are particular favorite for criminals, partly because we handle client money and partly because we tend to trust people with nice suits. There are three stages in laundering process: placement, layering, and integration. If it sounds like the steps in a washing machine cycle, that is because criminals treat their money in very much same way. So POCA, that it's Proceeds of Crime Act 2002, provides the main offences, and the courts are not fond of anyone who tries to help dirty money look presentable. Not at all. So solicitors are very careful about the money they are handling. So there are three stages of money laundering. Let's try to understand. The first stage, placement, is when the criminal tries to get the dodgy cash into the system. This is often where solicitors come in, usually in the middle of a property transaction that looks perfectly respectable until you ask one too many questions, like, how this money came from, where you got this money from, blah, blah, blah. So things will go wrong at that point if the money is laundered. So layering is the second step, and layering is the magician's stage trick, where criminal moves the money around so much that it becomes extremely difficult to trace. Imagine the money taking a gap year in the Caribbean, then coming back through three offshore companies, a trust in Jersey, and a business that sells consultancy services, very famous for laundering. Integration is the final flourish, where and when the money returns to the economy looking rather pleased with itself. This is all good. It might arrive in the famous form of a luxury car, an executive penthouse, or spaciously successful food business that never seemed to have customers at that point, or corner shops, or barber shops and all. So the next is we need to understand principal offences under POCA 2002, Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. That's it. So now for the big three offences in POCA: concealing, arranging, and acquiring. Concealing is exactly what it sounds like: hiding the criminal nature of money. Arranging is when you help someone control or move criminal property, which can happen unintentionally if you do not stay alert. And acquiring is offense of holding or using criminal property. The essential thing to remember is the suspicion is enough. You do not need proof, a confession, or a dramatic reveal as if you are in an episode of Line of Duty. Not at all. You don't need to get to become spy and all, like, to find the root of money. Once you are suspicious, that's it. Something smells suspicious, legally speaking, that counts. And that's what a solicitor must be careful. So we got the sections on this slide. You don't need to memorize them. Rather, you need to understand them for your preps for SQE. So the next thing is defenses and legal profession privilege that we got. Thankfully, there are defenses. Adequate consideration protects you when you are simply being paid a reasonable fee for legitimate work. Authorized disclosure offers protection. If you report the suspicion to the NCA, National Crime Agency, through a suspicious activity report, and reasonable excuse applies when you genuinely cannot disclose, often because of legal professional privilege. So privilege is a major shield. We protect clients' legal advice unless they are trying to use us as unwilling accomplices in crime. The courts have been that emphatic, about this. So in Baumann versus Fels, where they confirmed that normal litigation work should not be disrupted by money laundering reporting obligation, wise words from the judiciary for once. But the thing is, you need to be careful, once it is suspicion, it is your obligation to report it to the relevant National Crime Agency. So, failure to disclose and tipping off, once you do it, when we then move to the offences most likely to appear in SQE questions, the regulated sector. Failure to disclose and tipping off. Failure to disclose arises when a solicitor or other regulated professional suspect money laundering but keep quiet. Mouth shut. Silence may be golden in some parts of life, but not here. You cannot keep silent. If you suspect wrongdoing, you report it to your MLRO, money laundering officer at your law firm, or the NCA. Tipping off is the moment when you accidentally tell the client, by the way, we have reported you to the authorities. It tends to bring the interview to an abrupt end. It is unlawful if it risks prejudicing an investigation. Do not do it, even if the client offers you concert ticket, like I'll take you to the concert. Not at all. Okay, so money laundering regulations 2017, that requires firms to have proper system in place, risk assessment, internal controls, record keeping, and staff training on money laundering. You must identify client properly, monitor transaction, and generally appear like far more inquisitive than the British public normally is at that point. Compliance officers, meanwhile, must balance all of this without hiding under their desk. Like they need to do everything to identify client and keep the client's, compliance at standards. So compliance officers carry key responsibilities, and regulators expect firms to review procedures regularly. The most important takeaway is that risk-based approach. The higher the risk, the deeper you dig the client. And interesting thing that we need to understand, that is CDD, customers due diligence. So that means customer due diligence must be done at the start of matter, not halfway through the transaction. When you supply, you are going to give advice at that point. In the start, you need to conduct it, that you are due diligent about the client. So it requires identifying and verifying clients and beneficial owners, understanding the purpose of the retainer, and checking source of fund. Where circumstances change during the relationship, checks must be refreshed. Do it again. If CDD cannot be completed, you stop acting and consider filing a suspicious activity report. No exception, not even if the client insists they will sort it out next week. Not at all. Suspicion is there. Jump and go for report, filing an SAR. So simplified and enhanced due diligence, those are two different things. Not all clients pose the same risk. Simplified due diligence can be used when the risk is low, but only after a proper assessment. Enhanced due diligence is required when risks are higher, such as with politically exposed person, someone like from a foreign jurisdiction, and that's politician approaches you. At that point, you need to go enhance due diligence. So it can be if your client turns out to be a foreign minister, his children, his cousins, or the person who does his dry cleaning. You should not panic, but you should start asking more detailed questions. So extended due diligence also requires to large, complex, or kind of unusual transaction you need to do it. If something does not feel quite right, it is not right. And move for SAR. So, what is politically exposed persons and monitoring? Politically exposed person or PEPs need special attention because of high risk of corruption. When acting for a PEP, you need senior management approval, deeper verification, and ongoing monitoring. Ongoing monitoring include keeping an eye on transaction throughout the relationship and revisiting CDD if anything changes. This is not meant to turn solicitor into private investigator, not at all. Don't need to do it, but the line can sometimes blur, but you need to be vigilant on it, especially when client develops an unexpected interest in overseas investment in cash only business or blah 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 can that can be suspicious, like just suspicious to bare minimum. So let's talk about SQE1 tips and pitfall, our favorite. So always remember the three laundering stages. Know the principal offenses that the suspicion is enough to just go for SAR, filing suspicious activity report, understand the key defenses and when privileges apply, be confident on CDD, EDD, and SDD. At that point, they are favorite in SQE. Tipping off is a classic trap. And never forget the MLRO's role, that money laundering officer in a law firm. Because examiner love asking when a report should go to the MLRO or directly to NCA. Finally, keep the golden rule in mind. If you cannot complete due diligence, you stop work. No file, no fee, and certainly no laundered money. Wish you all the best, not with money laundering, with SQE. Have a good day. Ta-da!